This is the International Soccer Preview, and we are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to Series 17. We're looking at the squads of the 2023 Gold Cup. This episode is the full-length version with Jamaica's players. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccer Files Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is Series 17 on the players of the 2023 Gold Cup. This episode covers Jamaica's players. So just a couple of notes before we begin. We're combining the two media casts that we did for the World Cup on players into one here. So in that one, we kind of, part one was an overview of all the candidates, and then we categorized them into how likely they were to make the cup. And then the second part was when the final rosters came out, and we could actually look and see which players did actually make the squad and how accurate our predictions were. We're combining those two into one part here. The first part is being done in May, so we look at the candidates, and the second part is after the rosters have been published in June, where we actually can let you know who the final squad is made up of. Okay, so we did do a player media cast for Jamaica, and that was at the beginning of World Cup qualifying in 2021. So we gave a lot of biographical information on the players for that one. We're going to reduce that here, but if you want to go back and look at some more details, that podcast is available as a podcast and on YouTube. Okay, so we're organizing this by position, as we always have, realizing that this is not always accurate, as players do change positions. And I think a lot of Jamaica's players will have to be playing out of position because they're strong in some positions and have virtually no one in other positions. So always a few surprises, and we'll cover them as best as we can in the first part, and then update any changes that we know about in the second part. All right, let's move on. And we usually begin with a look at the formations that they've been using. Jamaica hasn't played a lot of games, actually. They had a couple of friendlies in March, and the friendly before that was back in November. So just a couple of friendlies, and to be honest, I couldn't even find the formations for those. So we're going to look at the 4 games that they played in the CONCACAF Nations League. The most recent of those was in March 2023, so that is a recent game, but the other 3 were way back in June 2022. Nevertheless, we'll take a look at it. So the first game was a 1-1 draw in Suriname, and for that they had a 3-2-2-2-1 formation, or you could see that as a 3-4-2-1 formation. And the next one also against Suriname, but that was the home leg, which they won 3-1. They changed to a 4-4-2 formation. The next one was against Mexico in June 2022. That was a home draw, where they had a 4-2-3-1 formation, and the final game was an away draw in Mexico with a 4-4-2 formation. So we learned very little from that. I mean, at home to Suriname and away in Mexico, they used the same 4-4-2 formation. So it doesn't really seem strategic, but I'm guessing it's kind of based on the players that they had available was mostly dictating the formation. Anyway, let's move on to the main part of this media cast, the candidates that we have. So we'll begin with the manager, and we'll begin with the outgoing manager, Theodore Whitman. I'll kind of highlight him in gray to show that he's outgoing. Theodore Whitman was a big player for Jamaica, and was the manager of their national team from 2016 to 2021. So he took them through several Gold Cups, actually, because that was his second stint with them. So all the way from 2009 to 2011 Gold Cups, and then from 2017 to 2021 Gold Cups, manager of Jamaica. So incoming is Heimir Hallgrimsson. Heimir Hallgrimsson earned fame as the co-manager of Iceland during their strong period from 2013 to 2018. And it's kind of interesting to see that some of the players are now playing in Iceland, probably through that connection with him. So he was co-manager of Iceland in the 2016 Euro Cup and the 2018 World Cup, where Iceland did very well there, but he quit the team after the World Cup in 2018, managed in Al Arabi in Qatar for a few years, and now is manager of the Jamaican team and will lead them through this tournament. So we would consider him a definite candidate. Moving on to goalkeepers, we're going to actually begin with a retiree. So Dwayne Miller has retired from the team, and actually that was quite a while ago because he was retired before the Gold Cup. So I'll just leave it at that. He's still playing. He's playing in Sweden, and was never actually really the starting keeper, but he was around for a lot of tournaments, and just wanted to point out that he is now no longer on the team. However, Andre Blake still is, and he is their captain. And he's been with Jamaica since 2014 and is 32 years old. He has 64 caps and plays for Philadelphia Union in the USA for a long time, since 2014. So he's basically been the starter since the Copa America 2016 Copa America Centenario, and he was the starter. We're really going to focus on the last Gold Cup in terms of history here. So he was the starter in the last Gold Cup, and he started 8 of their 16 games since 2022. Most recently, though, in September 2022. So he was out with a groin injury for the March 2023 games. So we may have to put him on the injured list here. Because we don't know when he's going to be back. There seemed no information about when he was due back. So that would be a big loss for Jamaica, especially when you see that the backup keepers are kind of inexperienced. And we'll move on to one of those backup keepers. That is Jamali Waite. We also consider him a definite candidate, though. That doesn't necessarily mean a starter. We just mean we think he will definitely make the squad. So Jamali Waite has been with the team since just 2022, and has only 3 caps for the team. And he's 24 years old and plays with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in the USA. But he got his first cap in September 2022 and started 2 of their remaining 5 games. And then he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. So he's regularly being chosen for the team. And given the lack of kind of other candidates, Dwayne Miller gone, as we mentioned, we think he's a definite candidate. The next one is at the likely level, and it's Kamar Foster. So Kamar Foster has also just been with the team since 2022, but he is older at 30 years old, and he also has 3 caps for the national team. He plays for Waterhouse in Jamaica. And actually, he returned after a 17-month absence in August 2022 to start 2 of their remaining 6 games. And then he was subbed in for 1 of those and on the bench for the 3 others. So not necessarily a starter for them, but always being called up. And I'm sure, well, it looks like if Andre Blake is injured, it'll be one of those 2 starting. But I'm sure they're hoping for Andre Blake to be back. And we'll have to update that in June, or in the second half of the podcast here. We have a possible candidate in Amal Knight. So he's been with the team a little longer, since 2018, and he's 29 years old and has 12 caps and 0 goals. He was part of the squad for the 2019 Gold Cup on the roster there, not seeing any action though. But he wasn't selected for the 2021 Gold Cup. But he's back now, and he started 3 of their 16 games since 2022 and was on the bench for 8 of them. But he wasn't selected for the last several matches, so that's why we moved him down to the possible level there. Amal Knight, a possible candidate. And then we have a possible but unlikely candidate in Dylan Barnes. He has 1 cap since his first in 2021, and he plays for QPR, or Queen's Park Rangers, in England, and he's 27 years old. He was a backup keeper on the bench in for the 2021 Gold Cup there, but he didn't start any of their 16 games since 2022. He was just on the bench for 3 of them, and the most recent one was in September 2022. So seems to be almost off the squad there. We also have a possible but unlikely candidate in Konaya Boyce-Clark. Well, Konaya Boyce-Clark is very young. He has actually not earned a cap for the team yet. He's 20 years old and plays for Reading in England. So yeah, and even it's not clear whether, I have one source saying he was called up for the squad for the CONCACAF Nations League game in March, but another source that doesn't record this. So really on the fringes, but perhaps one to watch for the future. And finally, we have Akeem Chambers seemingly off the squad. And he's been with the team since 2019. And he's 25 years old and has 2 caps, but he last appeared on the bench in June 2022. So hasn't been called up since then. So there we have it for the keepers. And we will move on to defenders and start with central defenders there, where they're very strong despite losing the services of Hector Miller. So we'll, of Michael Hector. And we'll begin with him just to clear that up. So Michael Hector, a veteran with the team from 2015 to 21, 35 caps, actually not as much a veteran as I thought he was. And we won't go into too much detail. He's still playing club soccer for Charlton in England, and was a big part of the team for several tournaments. He was a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup, but has retired from the national team at 31 years old. He last appeared on the bench. No, he last appeared, on the bench in July 2021. So we're saying he's retired. I actually not sure I have confirmation of it, but he seems to be off the team for sure. Okay, now let's move to the players that are active, and Damien Lowe is our first candidate at the definite level. So Damien Lowe has been with the team since 2016 and is 30 years old and has 52 caps and 2 goals. And he, like Andre Blake, the goalkeeper, plays for Philadelphia Union in the USA. So he's been a starter in several Gold Cups since 2017, including the 2021 Gold Cup. And he started 10 of their 16 games since the beginning of 2022. He was actually suspended for 2 of those games. So he looks like a definite starter for Jamaica. Another definite is Adrian Mariappa. So he has been with the team since 2012 and is 36 years old, but seems to be still going. He actually has kind of been moving to easier and easier clubs. He's now with Salford in England since 2023. He was with Burton Albion before that, and in Australia with MacArthur before that, and kind of actually on and off the team over his career. And he was part of the Gold Cup squad where he only appeared in 1 game, which was a B team game. So has actually had trouble as a starter. I think the 2015 Copa America and the 2015 Gold Cup were the only tournaments where he was a starter. Nevertheless, he started 8 of their 16 games since 2022 and subbed in for the last 2 of those games. And so maybe is getting a starting position. And it's actually for that reason, his recent participation, that we consider him a definite candidate, which is maybe a bit generous, but we will stick with it. At least likely for sure. Okay, and we have one more player categorized as definite, which is Richard King, and he's new to the team since 2022. And he is 21 years old, but has managed 12 caps in that short time. So he's one of those players who probably got a connection through the manager, and he's playing for IBV in Iceland since 2023. He was playing in Jamaica before that. And he first appeared on the bench in September of 2021, but started 9 of their 16 games since the start of 2022, as well as subbing in for a couple. So only 3 games out of 16 that he wasn't called up for. So we consider him a definite candidate, though perhaps not a starter. We'll see, because they have so many candidates here. At the likely level, we have Ethan Pinnock. And Ethan Pinnock has been with Jamaica just since 2021, even though he is 30 years old. So I think he was born in England, so maybe he was kind of recruited, as they seem to do a big search for English players with Jamaican roots. He plays for Brentford in England, and since 2021 he has only 6 caps for Jamaica. But in recent times, since the start of 2022, he started 4 of their 16 games, but wasn't called up for 12 others. So, of course, a big name who they would like to have on the squad. But like some of those English players recruited, he doesn't really make it out to that many of the games. So Ethan Pinnock, we consider a likely candidate. They'll certainly have him if he's available. Also likely is Javane Brown. And Javane Brown has been with Jamaica since 2017, and he's 24 years old and has 21 caps and 0 goals. He plays for the Vancouver Whitecaps in Canada, and has actually never made it onto a squad, even though he's been around since 2017, never made it to a tournament. However, he started 12 of their 16 games since the start of 2022, not selected for the 4 others. So, I mean, that is the numbers of a definite candidate, but because he's never been selected for a tournament, he's often been selected for the preliminary squad, but just didn't make the final cut. That's in 2019 and 2021. So, yeah, I guess somewhere between likely and definite, Javane Brown. We have a possible candidate in Jamoy Topi. So Jamoy Topi is fairly new to the team since 2019 and is 23 years old, and he has 8 caps, and he plays for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica. So he started 4 of their 16 games since the start of 2022, and he was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 4. So he just missed 6 of the 16 games in terms of not being called up there. Okay, and we have several possible but unlikely candidates here. So the first one is Fabian McCarthy, and he plays for Dunbeholden in Jamaica, and he's been with the team since 2018 and has 14 caps. Never been involved with the tournament, but did return after a 2.5-year absence in August 2022, but started just 1 game and then was not called up for the following 5 games to May 2023. So kind of made a comeback, but only for 1 game. The next one is Curtis Tilt, and he is He's been with the team since 2021, but he's 31 years old and has just 3 caps. He does play for Wigan in England, though, so seems to be one of those kind of players recruited with a Jamaican background. And he did get his first cap in 2021, but then was off the team and returned after a 15-month absence for a single appearance. So not likely that he's going to be on the squad, but you never know. Some of these players might make it into the team because their pedigree is pretty good. Wigan, in his case, in the English Premier League. Next one is Fitzroy Cummings. And he's just been with the team since 2023 and has 1 cap. So he got a cap in March 2023, but then was subbed in for one of the other games and not selected for the last 2 matches. But given the number of candidates here at the central defence position, we think it's unlikely he'll make it. He plays for Veer United in Jamaica. So Fitzroy Cummings, a possible but unlikely candidate. And then the last of this group is Joel Latibaudiere. Joel Latibaudiere actually doesn't have any caps for Jamaica, but he does have good pedigree playing for Swansea in England. So the 23-year-old, again, one of those players possibly recruited through a drive of birth records, if you will. Okay, so it's not even clear that he has been called up for the squad. Again, one source says he was and one says he wasn't. So nevertheless, good pedigree with Joel Latibaudiere. I'll just go over it because he is with Swansea in England, but he was loaned to 20 in the Netherlands, a fairly respectable club, and he was with Manchester City in England from 2018 to 20, and with their youth club for a long time before that. So again, it's one of those situations where if he agrees to play, he might kind of jump up on the list. Okay, finally, we have a player who seems to be off the squad. Last appeared for the national team in January 2022, so that's a year and a half ago. But again, one of those players possibly recruited through that system, and I've said all this stuff and haven't mentioned his name. It is Liam Moore. So he actually has 10 caps since 2021. He was a starter in the Gold Cup there and is 30 years old now. But as I said, last appeared about a year and a half ago, so I'm not sure what is going on with his situation. But seems to be off the team. Okay, that is an awful lot of central defenders, and it may be that some of them play out of position because we have a lot of we have a few left backs for Jamaica, but not many right backs. So maybe they will bring more of these guys to fill in those positions. But let's move on to left backs, where we have 2 likely candidates, and the first one is Ricardo Thomas. So Ricardo Thomas has been with the team since 2018 and is 25 years old with 12 caps. And he also plays for Dunby Holden in Jamaica, and not part of the of a tournament yet. He was not even selected for the 60-man preliminary squad for the 2021 Gold Cup. However, he did start 5 of their 16 games since 2022, and he was subbed in for 1 and also on the bench for 5. So only 5 of those 16 games he was not called up for, and that's why we think he's a likely candidate at least to be called up. The next one is Dexter Lembikisa. Dexter Lembikisa got his first cap in 2023, so very new to the team. He's young, he's just 19 years old, but he's got 3 caps already, and good pedigree in that he is with Wolverhampton Wanderers in England since 2022, and with their youth club before that. So again, that kind of birth certificate drive yielding a lot of players from England. So he got his first cap in March 2023 and started 2 of the 3 remaining games and was subbed in for 1. So they seem quite enthusiastic about him. And Dexter Lembikisi, we consider a likely candidate. At the possible level, we have Amari Bell. So Amari Bell, again, a recruit from England. Actually, my notes don't say that he was born in England, so he actually might have been born in Jamaica, but I suspect he was born in England because he was with youth teams in England as well. Anyway, since 2021, but he is 29 years old and he has 10 caps. So he's playing with Luton in England, who were just promoted to the Premier League. And he was part of the Gold Cup. He started game one and then lost his starting position in that cup for game three. And he started 4 of their 16 games since 2022, but he was not selected for 12 others. So we do see a pattern of some of these recruits from England kind of playing a few games for the team, but not playing a lot of games, and sometimes kind of dropping off. We're going to see that with Mikel Antonio, that kind of pattern. So Amari Bell, we just consider him a possible candidate here, but I'm sure they would be happy to have him if he comes. Also possible is Kamar Lawrence, so a real veteran with the team. Here, Kamar Lawrence is 30 years old and he's been with Jamaica since 2013, and he had 75 caps and 3 goals. So he is with Minnesota United in the USA and has been part of many tournaments over the years, usually as a starter, but not as a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup. He subbed into game 3 and then gained a starting position for the following 2 games, so became a starter there. In terms of his record since 2022, he started the first 3 of their 16 games, and then he has subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1, but not selected for 10 matches. So not really sure what's going on with Kamar Lawrence there. But we still consider him a possible candidate because he's such a veteran with the team. Okay, so 4 candidates at left back. But then at right back, we only have basically 2 candidates who are the possible but unlikely. So it'll probably be a left back or a central defender filling in at right back here. And part of the reason that hole exists is because Alvis Powell, I'll call him, well, not necessarily retired, I should say, seems to be off the team here because there's no announcement of his retirement. But Alvin Powell was with the team from 2012 to 2022, but he last played in February 2022, so more than a year ago. And he has 58 caps and 2 goals. He's actually not really at retirement age. He's just 28 years old, but is not being called up to the team. He plays for FC Cincinnati in the USA, and he was a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup. So kind of suddenly dropped off the team in early 2022, and I wouldn't be surprised if they ask him to come back because they don't have right backs here, but he hasn't been around for more than a year, so we have to consider him off the team for the time being, but we'll update in the June or in the second half of the podcast. Okay, the 2 candidates who are possible but unlikely are O'Shane Staple. O'Shane Staple got his first cap in 2023, but he is 24 years old and he plays for Harbourview in Jamaica. And first cap in March of 2023, and but not selected for the other 2 matches. So we think they were just giving him a shot, and it maybe didn't work out. So the other possible but unlikely candidate is Maliak Howell. And Maliak Howell has been with the team since 2022 and is 24 years old, but just the 2 caps here. And a little confusion as to who he plays for. Again, my sources differed. One said Las Vegas Lights in USA, and the other said Memphis Tigers University team. So not sure where he is, but he got his first cap in January 2022. And was subbed in for 2 other games and on the bench for 1, but not selected for 13 of the games since 2022. So possible, but unlikely, Maliek Howell. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of defenders, and we move on to the midfield. And we have a couple of players who I call either various midfielders or general midfielders. So the first are a couple of players gone from the team, so we'll put them as seems to be off the team. It's Junior Flemings. He's been with Jamaica since 2017. At this 27 years old, 26 caps and 4 goals, and he plays for Toulouse, sometimes with their B team, Toulouse in France, since 2022. But he last appeared for the team in June 2022. He was a part of the 2021 Gold Cup squad, where he subbed into games 1 and 2 and then got a starting position. So a fairly big name for Jamaica, but hasn't been heard from in a year. So we consider him off the team. But again, we wouldn't be shocked to see him pop up again, especially since he's not that old. The other one is Devon Williams. So Devon Williams is 31 years old, and he's been with Jamaica since 2010 with 36 caps and 1 goal. And he plays for Colorado Springs Switchback in USA, recently moving there from Miami FC in 2023. And he was part of the Gold Cup squad in 2021, another player who subbed into the first 2 games and then gained a starting position. And he was also a starter in the 2019 Gold Cup. So it's a bit surprising to see these players dropping off. In the case of Devon Williams, he appeared for 23 games in a row for Jamaica, mostly starting, and then suddenly stopped also in June 2022. So I wonder if something happened with these 2 fairly regular starters for Jamaica, and then both of them stopping play abruptly in June 2022. So if we find any information on that, we'll let you know in the second half of the podcast. Meanwhile, we have one likely candidate in Demario Phillips. And rather than being a versatile midfielder, in his case, it's just kind of not clear where in the midfield he plays. Even though he has had 4 games for the team, but we'll have to look for more information on that. But actually, several of my sources just say he's a midfielder rather than specifying which one he is. So Demario Phillips is 24 years old, but he's only been with the squad since 2022 and has 4 caps and 0 goals. He plays for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica. And he got his first cap in August 2022 and then started 2 of their remaining 6 games up until the end of May. Our study here, of course, is only going until May because we don't know the June games, but they do have a couple of June friendlies with Jordan and Qatar in June, so we'll be able to report on that in the second half of the podcast. Anyway, started 2 of their games, subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2, so regularly called up in recent times. And Demario Phillips looks like a likely candidate to us, really because of his recent participation. Okay, let's move on to defensive midfielders. And we also have someone here who is off the squad, and we'll begin with him. This player has retired from international play and actually from club play also. Is Javon Watson. Javon Watson. And Javon Watson was a real veteran with the team. He was with the team from 2008 to 2019 and is now 40 years old, so well into the age of retirement. He had 95 caps and 4 goals for Jamaica, and actually retired before the Gold Cup in 2021. So actually, I probably shouldn't be spending as much time on him as I do. Anyway, Javon Watson, not on the team. We have now 3 possible candidates. The first is Kevon Lambert. So Kevon Lambert has been with the team since 2017 and is 28 years old. That's 26 years old and has 20 caps and no goals. He plays for Phoenix Rising in the USA, and he was part of the Gold Cup in 2017 and 2019, but not in 2021. He was selected for the big preliminary roster there, but didn't make the final cut. And actually, he returned after a year-long absence in June 2022, and then started 4 of their remaining 9 games and was on the bench for 2 others. So just 3 games recently that he wasn't selected for. So we consider him a possible candidate. We also have Alwyn Harvey as a possible candidate. So Alwyn Harvey is new to the team since 2022, even though he's 25 years old. And he has just 3 caps and plays for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica. And the first of his caps was in August 2022. And he started just 1 of their games, but was subbed in for 2 others. So probably a little less possible than Kevon Lambert, but still we have him at the possible level. And finally, we have Ramon Howell. So Ramon Howell is 28 years old, but only with the team since 2022. And he also has 3 caps and 0 goals, and he plays for Waterhouse in Jamaica, but he did play for FC Tucson in the USA before that. And he got his first cap in January 2022, but started just 1 of the 16 games since then. But he was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2. So again, kind of an outside chance, maybe somewhere between possible and possible, but unlikely. But we put him at the possible level. We do have 1 player at the possible but unlikely level, and that's Joshon Anglin. So Joshon Anglin has been with the team since 2020 and is 22 years old and has 4 caps, and he plays for Harborview in Jamaica, but also he played in America too with Miami FC in 2021, but then came back to Jamaica. So he returned after a 2.5-year absence and didn't start any of their 3 remaining games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. So, kind of in and around the squad, but doesn't look like a very possible candidate. So Joshon Anglin, a possible but unlikely candidate. And then 1 seemingly off the team, Kevin Stewart. So another one of those players recruited from England, and he plays for Blackpool in England and has been with Jamaica since 2022. And he has 2 caps, but he is 30 years old. And he was actually on that big roster for the 2021 Gold Cup, but didn't make the final cut. And then last appeared for the national team in February 2022. So we do see, again, that pattern of these players being recruited from England, perhaps giving it a try and deciding that they don't want to be part of the national team. These are players with kind of good pedigree in England, but who are kind of fleetingly with Jamaica. All right. Well, we had quite a few defensive midfielders, but we're a bit thin in the central midfield area. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the defensive midfielders or even some of the central defenders move up to the midfield, because this is a very small number of central midfielders, whereas most teams have a lot of players in this area. Our first candidate is just at the possible level, and it's John Russell, uh, who has been with Jamaica, is new to Jamaica, so 22 years old, and he got his first cap in 2023 and plays for Barnsley in England. And his first and only appearance was as a substitute in March 2023. That was the last game they played, so that was the game against Mexico. Yes, so we'll have to see, because he's brand new to the team. He was actually with Chelsea in England in 2020 and 21. So another player with good pedigree recruited from England. We have him at the possible level. At the possible but unlikely level is Delano McCoy-Splatt. Delano McCoy-Splatt is very young. Sorry, I'm just trying to get his name. I think he's 18 years old, yes. And he's been with the team since 2023 with one cap. So he's with Fulham in England, and he got his first cap in March 2023 and started one of their 3 remaining games, but wasn't selected for the last 2 matches. So we have him as possible but unlikely. But like a lot of these recruits with good pedigree, I think it comes down to whether they agree to play or not. There. Okay, that's all we have for central midfielders. Isn't that something? So we move on to left midfielders, and we only have one there, and that's Leon Bailey, who is at the likely level. Now, among these kind of recruits from England, he has been playing a little bit more than most of them for Jamaica. So Leon Bailey has been with the team since 2019 and is 25 years old, but he does have 19 caps and 3 goals. So he plays for Aston Villa in England since 2021, having moved from Bayer Leverkusen in Germany. And he was part of the 2019 and 2021 Gold Cups, a starter in both, but actually in the 2021 Gold Cup, he was relegated to the bench after game 2 and didn't appear after that. And now his recent record, he started 7 of their 16 games since the start of 2022. He was injured actually for the first 4 of those, and not selected for 5 others. So, as I say, a bit of a more regular kind of comes to games more regularly than a lot of the English recruits. So we have Leon Bailey as a likely character, and that's all we have for left midfielders. Not only that, but we don't have any right midfielders or players coded as right midfielders. So really a bit thin in the midfield is Jamaica. And we'll probably see quite a few players playing out of position. As far as left wingers go, we only have one candidate. Well, not even a candidate, because it's someone who seems to be off the squad. It's Rolando Aarons. So Rolando Aarons has been with the team since 2022, even though he's 28 years old. And has just 2 caps for the squad. Another recruit from England. He plays for Huddersfield in England. And his first and only appearance was as a substitute in 2 of the CONCACAF Nations League games in June 2022. So June 2022, the last time he appeared. So again, the English recruits a bit dicey in terms of their consistency of participation for Jamaica. And now we do have several right wingers. We have 3 possible candidates. So the first is Jamal Lowe. So Jamal Lowe has been with the team since 2021. And he has 6 caps and 2 goals, the 28-year-old. And he plays for Bournemouth in England, although he was loaned to Queen's Park Rangers in 2023. And he started 2 of their 16 games since the start of 2022, but that includes the last of those games. He was also subbed in for one. So because he's been around kind of recently, we kind of saw him as a possible candidate. And we also have Kahim Paris as a possible candidate. And Kahim Paris, a bit of an interesting player there. He's playing for Dynamo Kiev in Ukraine, and he was in Slovenia before that. So a bit of a globetrotter is Kahim Paris. But I should tell you that he is 23 years old and has been with Jamaica since 2017, but only 8 caps. And he wasn't called up for any tournament. He was on the preliminary rosters for the 2019 and 2021 tournaments, but not selected for either. And he hasn't started any of their games since the start of 2022, but he was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 2. And those tend to be more recent matches also. So we consider him a possible candidate, perhaps working his way a little deeper into the team, Kahim Paris. And finally, we have Tyler Roberts. So Tyler Roberts has been with the team since 2023 and is just 19 years old. So 1 cap, he just has the 1 cap. But he also plays for Wolverhampton Wanderers in England. That's since 2022, but he was with their youth club from 9 years of age, actually. And he was loaned to Doncaster in 2023. So really kind of maybe a few years before he works his way into the Wolves team, the first team, but kind of on the way. So he got his first appearance on the bench in March 2023, and he had subbed into their one of their 3 remaining games. So and he was on the bench for the other. So just coming into the team, the young Tyler Roberts, we consider him a possible candidate. And then we have 2 who are no longer on the team, and I'll really just mention him by name. So Oniel Fisher, he's still playing at the club level for Detroit City in the USA, but he last appeared for the national team in November 2021. So he did appear in the Gold Cup. He only started a B team game there, but last appeared in 2021. So well and truly off the team is Oniel Fisher. And also Blair Turgott last appeared even earlier than Oniel Fisher in September 2021. And even he was a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup, but that was his only tournament for them. And he's still playing at the club level for Häcken in Sweden. But he only ever had 6 caps for Jamaica, and they were all in 2021. So kind of came and went quickly, Blair Turgott. All right, and that brings us to the end of midfield candidates. And so we look at forwards. We actually include attacking midfielders among the forwards here. And I'm just going to take a little drink before I continue. Okay, I'm back, and they have quite a few candidates at the attacking midfielder level. So the first one is Ravel Morrison, who we consider a definite candidate. And I don't have an accurate number on the number of caps he has. Let me see if I can bring that up. He has 18 caps and 2 goals. And he plays. He is. I'm losing my spot here. He is 30 years old and has been with the team just since 2020. So only 3 caps and no goals during that time. Ravel Morrison, and plays for DC United in the in the USA, but he is one of those English recruits. He grew up in England, was actually with Manchester United as his youth and first club, Ravel Morrison, and he was actually on the roster for the 2021 Gold Cup, but he wasn't on the bench for any of the 4 games, so I'm not really sure what happened there. However, since the beginning of 2022, he's been very involved, starting 12 of their 16 games, and that's why we have him as a definite candidate here. So Ravel Morrison, a bit of a mercurial character, is he, but a definite candidate given his recent participation. All right, let's move on to 2 likely candidates in Bobby Day-Cordova-Reid, sometimes called just Bobby Reid. And Bobby Day-Cordova-Reid has been with the team since 2019, and he is 30 years old and has 18 caps and 3 goals. So a late recruit to the Jamaica side. Again, one of those recruited from England. He's currently with Fulham in England since 2020, but he was with Cardiff. That's the team we love because I grew up there. He was with them from 2018 to 20 and is doing well in England. He was a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup for Jamaica, and since then he started 4 of their 16 games on the bench for the first one of those, and then not selected for the 11 others. But that doesn't mean that much. It really kind of comes down to, whether he's available and agrees to come. We consider him a likely candidate because he did come to the 2021 Gold Cup. Also likely is Lamar Walker. Well, Lamar Walker has been with the team since 2019. Even though he's just 22 years old, he has 19 caps and 1 goal, and he plays for Portmore United in Jamaica. He recently returned there, like a couple of other players we've seen. He played for Miami FC for a couple of years and then returned to his original team in Jamaica there. So he was part of the Gold Cup 2021 squad. He was subbed into 2 games there, and he has since started 3 of their 16 games since the start of 2022, but he was subbed in for 6 and on the bench for 1. So only 6 games he wasn't called up for. So we consider him a likely candidate because his participation is better than most. Okay, we have 2 possible, or 3. No, wait, we have a string of possible candidates, beginning with Corey Burke. Corey Burke has been with Jamaica since 2016 and is 31 years old now, and he has 29 caps and 7 goals. So actually always had a bit of trouble making his way into the first team. He was never a starter, but he did gain a starting position in the 2017 Gold Cup. And I don't know if I mentioned that he plays. I don't know if I gave the bio information. So he's been with Jamaica since 2016, 29 caps and 7 goals, and plays for New York Red Bulls in the USA. Anyway, he wasn't selected for the 2019 Gold Cup. I think visa issues were reportedly the cause, but whatever the story was there, a bit of suspicion surrounding that story. But he was available for the 2021 Gold Cup, although he wasn't a starter. He just started a couple of games there, but also subbed in for a couple of games. In terms of recent participation, he's only started 1 of their 16 games since the start of 2022, but he did sub in for the last one and was on the bench for 2. So his recent participation and his long history with the club making Corey Burke a possible candidate here. Also possible, Jourdain Fletcher. So Jourdain Fletcher has been with the team since 2017 and is 24 years old, but only 8 caps and 2 goals. So he's never been called up for a tournament. Actually, for the 21 2021 Gold Cup, he wasn't even on that 60-man preliminary squad. But since 2022, he has started 3 games and subbed in for 2 of those 16 games. So we have him as a possible candidate. Next is Daniel Johnson, also at the possible level. And he has been with Jamaica since 2020, even though he is 30 years old. And in that time, only 12 caps and 2 goals. So again, a recruit from England there. He plays for Preston North End and has done so since 2015. But he was part of the Gold Cup, a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup there. And since then started 4 of their 16 games since 2022 and was on the bench for 1. So Daniel Johnson, a possible candidate. We have 3 more to go. Omari Hutchinson, new to the squad and very young. He has been with the team since 2023 and 19 years old and has 2 caps. And he's actually with Chelsea in England there, and he was with their youth club also. And he got his first cap in March 2023 and started 2 of their 3 remaining games, but then wasn't selected for the last match. So yeah, a lot of these players kind of up in the air as to what their real status is with Jamaica. But a lot of talent to choose from. Is just persuading that talent to fly over from England and play games or tournaments for them. Next possible candidate is Colin Anderson, and he has been with Jamaica also since 2023, so very recent, even though he's 24 years old. He just has the 2 caps and plays for Cavalier in Jamaica. So he got his first cap in March 2023 and started 1 game and subbed in for 1 game and was not selected for 1 game. So Colin Anderson, a possible candidate. And finally, our 6th and final possible candidate is Dwayne Atkinson. Dwayne Atkinson is 21 years old and has 3 caps and no goals. And he got his first cap in January 2022. So started 1 game and subbed in for 2 games and was on the bench for 1. So called up for 4 of the 16 games. And we consider Dwayne Atkinson a possible candidate. And finally, we have a player who seems to be off the team, and it is Tyrek McGee. So Tyrek McGee is only 24 years old, and he has been with the team since 2019 and 9 caps and plays for Colorado Springs Switchback in the USA. So he was actually on the squad for the 2019 and 2021 Gold Cups, despite the small number of caps that he has, selected for those 2 squads. But he last appeared on the bench in June 2022, so hasn't been called up since then. So we consider Tyrek McGee to be off the squad. But who knows with Jamaica? We have seen a couple of players kind of make comebacks. All right. Well, we have no one listed as a secondary striker, but we have some players at the forward level. So we consider, I'm not sure if we consider Shamar Nicholson definite or likely. So let's make the decision after we go through his information. So Shamar Nicholson has been with Jamaica since 2017 and is 26 years old and has 34 caps and 11 goals. So a fairly big player in recent times for him, and he for Jamaica. And he plays for Spartak Moscow in Russia since 2022 there. And he was a starter in the 2021 Gold Cup. He started games 1 and 2, but then lost his starting position and was relegated to a substitute position. And he started 4 of their 16 games since 2022, but wasn't selected for the 12 others. So I'm going to consider him a likely candidate there. Likely in the sense that, you know, if they can get him to agree to play they would like to have him, but he doesn't seem to show up for a lot of games. The same is actually true with Andre Gray, the next candidate, also at the likely level. And he has been with Jamaica since 2021 and is 31 years old, but only 13 caps and 3 goals in that time. So another of the recruits from England, although he's not playing in England right now. He's playing for Aris Thessalonica in Greece since 2022, but he was with Watford before that and with several English teams, including the Wolverhampton Youth Club. So Andre Gray did appear for the 2021 Gold Cup. He was just started a B team game in that tournament, actually. And since then, he started 3 of their 16 games. And he was also subbed in for 3, but not selected for 10 of them, including the last 4 matches. So, again, a player they would like to have, but we're not sure if he's really going to be there. And then we have 3 possible candidates. Speaking of players they would like to have, Mikel Antonio is the first of these, but only at the possible level. He was recruited to Jamaica in 2020, but didn't participate in the 2021 Gold Cup. He has 7 caps and 3 goals. So he played his first game in World Cup qualifying. I think he was trying to make it onto the England team there. So he's 33 years old, plays for West Ham in England since 2015, and actually was good for them in the World Cup qualification. But I did notice with him, and it may be true for a lot of these players, just seem to have a bit of trouble integrating into the team. So perhaps the bread and butter players are a bit resentful of these players who are recruited from England and immediately slotted into the team, perhaps taking their spots. It must be an interesting dynamic with Jamaica. But the sense I had with Mikel Antonio is he didn't seem to integrate that well into the team. Nevertheless, since the start of 2022, he has started 4 of their 16 games. But the most recent of those was in September 2022. So kind of almost seems to be off the squad there. And we'll have to see what happens with him and with so many other of these English recruits. So Mikel Antonio, a possible candidate. The next one is Duwan Richards. So Duwan Richards has been with the team since 2023. He's just 17 years old and has 2 caps. So he got his first cap in March 2023 and started 2 of their 3 remaining games, but wasn't selected for the last match. So Duwan Richards is with the Chelsea Youth Club in England. So another of these recruits, if a somewhat younger one. And we'll have to see how his career goes with Jamaica. And the final possible candidate is Trevante Stewart. So Trevante Stewart has been with Jamaica since 2022 and is 23 years old and has 3 caps. And he is stationed in Jamaica. He plays for Mount Pleasant in Jamaica. And he got his first cap in November of 2022 and started 1 of their remaining 4 games and was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for the other ones. So called up all 4 times ever since his first call up. So we consider him a possible candidate, Trevante Stewart. Next, we have 2 candidates who are possible but unlikely, and the first is Colorado Murray. Well, Colorado Murray has been with Jamaica since 2020, even though he's 28 years old, so a bit of a late joiner to the club with 3 caps, and he plays in Jamaica with Harbourview. But he was last called up in he was called up after a 2.5-year absence in August 2022. And he subbed into 2 of their remaining 6 games and was not subbed in or was not selected for the 4 others. So I suppose kind of an outside possible candidate, maybe somewhere between possible and possible but unlikely. So nevertheless, Colorado Murray, possible but unlikely. And the same category, we have Sule McCalla. So Sule McCalla is 20, no, I think he's 31 years old. He's 30 years old. Excuse me, I gotta have a little drink here. 30 years old, but he got his first cap in 2023, just one cap in March 2023, and then not selected for the last two matches. So Sule McCullough, kind of a latecomer to the team there. And finally, we have three players off the team, and one of them surprises me. So seemingly off the team is Kemar Roof. And I really thought he was going to be become a staple when I saw him. When did I see him? I think I must have seen him in World Cup qualifying games. Anyway, he is 30 years old. I'm pretty sure they were very happy to have him, Kemar Roof, but he's 30 years old, and he earned his only caps in 2021, 5 caps and 1 goal, and hasn't appeared for the team since then. So he played for Rangers in Scotland and was with Anderlecht in Belgium and Leeds before that. That's why I thought they were happy to have him. But anyway, just 5 games in 2021, and then he was off the team. So I was a bit surprised by that. But actually doing this media cast here, I'm beginning to see there's quite a few players kind of in that position who kind of come and then go. Next one at the possible, but seems to be off the squad level, is Atafaroy Bygrave. Well, Atafaroy Bygrave, also a latecomer to the squad. So he's 29 years old, but got his first cap just in 2022 and has 4 caps and 0 goals. So he is with Mount Pleasant in Jamaica, but interestingly, he was with Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam before that. But he got his first cap in March of 2022, and then started, was kind of a regular on the team for 6 games to June 2022, and then disappeared after that and wasn't selected for any more games. So that's the third player we've seen kind of abruptly leaving the team in June 2022. So again, I wonder if there's a story behind that. Finally, seems to be off the squad is Earl Simpson. So Earl Simpson had 1 cap in 2022. Sorry, I just need to get his age here. He's 22 years old and plays for Arnett Gardens in Jamaica. And he made his first appearance on the bench in June 2022. But didn't start any games, but just was subbed in for 1 game and on the bench for 3 games. Actually, 3 of the CONCACAF Nations League games there, and not selected for 5 matches. So I'm not sure why I have him so low down. He seems more like a possible candidate, given that information, but we'll leave him where he is and perhaps revisit it when we come back for the second half of the media cast here. So we've gone through all the candidates and assessed their likelihood. I gotta say, with Jamaica, it's pretty tough given all of these candidates from recruited from England who, sometimes become part of the team and sometimes seem to come and go, and it's never clear whether they're really gonna come out to games or tournaments. So it'll be interesting to see who they choose, but we have to wait a month before that. Of course, it'll be just a minute, a couple of seconds from your perspective, but we will see you in June for the second half of the media cast here. Bye-bye. It's June, and we're back for the part 2 of the player podcast for Jamaica. So welcome back those of you who are continuing from part 1, but we're also making this part 2 into a short version. So welcome to those joining for the short version. And I'll just summarize what we did in part one, just to catch you up. So we basically looked at a list of all of the eligible players who have played recently, basically, for Jamaica, and we categorized them by position and according to their likelihood of making the squad. So we had definite, likely, possible but unlikely, seemingly off the squad, and a couple of other categories. And so we're going to go through that list again now that we have the provisional and the preliminary and final roster, and we'll tell you who made it and who didn't. So let us begin. Now, Jamaica, unlike Canada and USA, did bring a squad, so they are pretty ambitious about it, and they may have a better chance, given that some of the bigger teams are not bringing their best. Okay, so the manager remains Heimer Hallgrimsson. There actually are a couple of managerial changes in the CONCACAF in the Gold Cup, which for other teams, which we'll deal with when we do the other teams, but not for Jamaica. So Heimer Hallgrimsson, the manager, taking them through this thing. Okay, now we have Andre Blake. We move on to goalkeepers, and Andre Blake, who we had as a definite candidate, did make the squad, as did the other definite candidate, Jamali Waite. So in part one, we gave biographical information on these players, if you want to go back and not only learn about what they, the biography, how long they've been with the national team and what club they play for and stuff like that, but also why we put them at the level that we put them here, kind of justifying our categorizations of them. Anyway, Andre Blake and Jamali Waite, it seems like we were right in considering them definite candidates because they are going to be there. We have as the likely candidate Kimar Foster. Now, he made the 50-man preliminary squad, but didn't make the final squad. And the same is true with possible candidate Amal Knight. Made the preliminary squad. We had two possible but unlikely candidates, Dylan Barnes and Konaya Boyce-Clark. So Dylan Barnes was not named even to the preliminary squad, but Konaya Boyce-Clark was named to the final squad. So a bit of a surprise there, being chosen over Knight and Foster, but there we have it. And we also had Akeem Chambers, who we said was seemingly off the squad, and indeed he is. He wasn't selected even for the preliminary squad. And then we noted retired keeper Dwayne Miller, and is it injured keeper Andre Blake? Oh yes, no, he was an injury doubt, out with a groin injury for the March 23 games, but he recovered from that injury, so is no longer on the injured list. Okay, Michael Hector, where am I at? Michael Hector, we put as a retired player, having last played in June, or last appeared for the national team in June 2021. But he was named to the preliminary squad, Michael Hector, but did not make the final squad there. Rather, we had three definite candidates in Damian Lowe, Adrian Mariappa, and Richard King, and two of them made it, and it is Damian Lowe and Adrian Mariappa made it to the final squad, and Richard King made the preliminary squad, but not the final squad there. So that's a bit of a surprise because we had considered him a definite candidate. We also had two likely candidates in Ethan Pinnock and Javane Brown. So I think it's Ethan Pinnock kind of coming in. I've heard rumor that he may not be there for the first game, Ethan Pinnock, but will be there at some point in the tournament, and Javane Brown, both making the squad. So Richard King, the one left out there. We had a possible candidate in Jamoy Topi. He didn't even make the preliminary squad. And then we had 4 possible but unlikely candidates: Fabian McCarthy and Curtis Tilt. Neither of those made the squad. However, Fitzroy Cummings made the preliminary squad, and Joel Latibaudiere did make the squad. So a bit of a surprise there too. And we had Liam Moore seemingly off the squad, and he wasn't named to the preliminary squad. In addition, we have a new candidate. So they're bringing that is 6 centre backs to the show, and the new one is an interesting case. It's Bernard Deschamps. Deschamps Bernard. I got the name backwards there. Deschamps Bernard is another of the recruits from England, and he was with Manchester United. With their youth club, and also on the squad, but loaned out to 3 different clubs between 2020 and 2022. So kind of an up-and-comer for Jamaica. He is 23 years old, and he did play 2 caps. He played 2 caps in June, subbing into one and starting another. So Deschamps Bernard added new to the squad here. Okay, we move on to left backs, and our 2 candidates. We didn't have any at the definite level, but 2 at the likely level: Ricardo Thomas and Dexter Limbikisa. And Ricardo Thomas just named to the preliminary squad, but Dexter Limbikisa selected for the final squad. And we had 2 possible candidates: Amari Bell and Lawrence Kimar. And Amari Bell was selected for the squad. And Lawrence Kimar is a bit of an interesting case here. So he was actually listed as injured with a thigh problem and an unknown return date. We didn't report this in May because it hadn't happened in May. This was an injury picked up in mid-June. And Lawrence Kimar, according to the CONCACAF roster that I have, was not listed. However, it said it was a 40-man roster and there were 39 names on it. So I wonder if he was listed, because my understanding is you're not allowed to choose someone who wasn't listed on the preliminary squad. Anyway, whatever the case, he is on the squad, Lawrence Kimar. So I'm sure they're happy about that, because he looked like he was going to be an injury problem, but he's back. Maybe the injury will be a problem, but he's on the roster at least. Over to right backs, we only had a couple of possible but unlikely candidates. That's because Alvin Powell appeared to be off the team. That's Alvis Powell appeared to be off the team, having last played in February 2022. Well, Alvis Powell was named to the preliminary squad, so he's still somewhat in the picture, but not named to the final squad. O'Shane Staple was named to the preliminary squad also, but not named to the final squad, and Maliak Howell not named at all. So none of these players playing right back or coded as right backs will be there. So I'm guessing one of the 3 players who are coded as left backs will have to move over to that position there. Okay, on to the midfield. And we had 3 players we had as kind of versatile midfielders or general midfielders. One of them was Junior Flemings, and the other was Devon Williams. And we had them as both seemingly off the squad, but they were named to the preliminary squad, but not chosen for the final squad. The same is true with our likely candidate, Demario Phillips, and he was only named to the preliminary squad, not named to the final squad. Okay, defensive midfielders. We had 3 possible candidates. That was the highest level for that position. Kevon Lambert, Alwyn Harvey, and Ramon Howell. And Kevon Harvey was named, Kevon Lambert was named to the final squad, but Alwyn Harvey and Ramon Howell not even named to the preliminary squad there. And we had a couple of candidates, possible but unlikely, Joshua Anglin, and seemingly off the squad, Kevin Stewart. Neither of those named even to the preliminary squad. On to central midfielders. And our highest level here was the possible level also. And it was John Russell as a possible candidate, and he did make the squad. And then possible but unlikely, Delano McCoy Splatt was named to the preliminary squad, but not the final squad. Left midfielders, we only had one candidate, and it was at the likely level, and it was Leon Bailey, and Leon Bailey indeed was selected for the final squad. For right midfielders, we didn't have any players coded that way, and for left wingers, just one player coded, Rolando Aarons, who we had as seemingly off the squad, and that is the case as he was not selected even for the preliminary squad. However, we do have a new candidate here. So in this position that seemed quite thin, they managed to recruit Damari Gray. Damari Gray from England. He plays for Everton, and had been apparently thinking of joining Jamaica once he realized he wouldn't make it to the English national team, and they got him for this tournament. So Jamari Gray didn't play any games for Jamaica yet, very newly recruited. He is 27 years old, and he's with Everton in England, and he also played for Leicester in England and Birmingham. So that was a coup for Jamaica, getting him, as they continue to look for English players with Jamaican roots. All right, moving over to the right wing, we only had possible candidates there too. We had Jamal Lowe, Kaheem Paris, and Tyler Roberts. And Kaheem Paris did make the final squad. Jamal Lowe only the preliminary squad, and Tyler Roberts not selected at all. And then two players seemingly off the squad, Orniel Fisher and Blair Turgot. Neither of those named even to the preliminary squad. For attacking midfielders, we start with Ravel Morrison, and he was named to the preliminary squad, and this is a bit of a curious situation. We had him as a definite, and he is listed as ineligible for the tournament. It says ineligible due to cross competition. I have no idea what that means. So I can't tell you. So anyway, he was selected for the preliminary squad, but not the final squad. You know, you would think if he's ineligible, he couldn't be on the preliminary squad either. I don't get it. He's also having trouble at DC United. I think Wayne Rooney, the manager, recently released him in a bit of a controversy. And so he's going through some tough times. Anyway, we had two likely candidates in Bobby De Cordova-Reid, and he is on the final squad, and Lamar Walker, who only made the preliminary squad. And we had 6 possible candidates. So I'll just go through them in order of which ones made it. So Corey Burke was one of them, and he was selected for the final squad. And Daniel Johnson also selected for the final squad. 2 of them only made the preliminary squad. That was Omari Hutchinson and Colin Anderson. And then the other 2, Jordan Fletcher and Dwayne Atkinson, not selected even for the preliminary squad. And a player who was seemingly off the squad, Tyrick McGee, also not selected for the preliminary squad. Moving on to forwards, we had 2 likely candidates in Shamar Nicholson and Andre Gray. Well, Shamar Nicholson is on the squad. Andre Gray not even named to the preliminary squad there, even though we had him as a likely candidate. And I'm not sure what happened with him, other than to say that he got married this summer and perhaps took the time off to do that. He was married earlier in the summer, though, before the Cup. Andre Gray, so then not named to the preliminary squad. Okay. Moving on, we had three possible candidates in Mikel Antonio and Duan Richards and Trevante Stewart. And we had Mikel Antonio as possible just because it wasn't that they wouldn't have chosen him if he wasn't available. We just weren't sure if he was going to make himself available. But good to see him there. He was named to the final squad, as was Duan Richards. And Trevante Stewart just named to the preliminary squad. We had two possible but unlikely candidates, Colorado Murray and Sule Stewart, and neither of those were named even to the preliminary squad. But some of the ones who seemed to be off the squad, in our opinion, were named, and Kemar Roof was named to the preliminary squad, and Atafaroy Bygrave was named to the preliminary squad. So they are still in the picture. So that makes me, I talked in part one about being surprised that Kemar Roof wasn't making more inroads into the team. This is even a little bit weirder that, he was, I thought he was off the team, but obviously not off the team. He's named to the preliminary squad, but still not making inroads. Okay, and that brings us to the end. So those are our players. So I'm going to go over some summaries here. So the first one will be notable non-selections, and really just one there. That was Kemar Foster, who was named to the preliminary squad and not the final squad. Sorry, there are more. I made a mistake. So goalkeeper Kemar Foster, one of the surprise non-selections. Another one was Michael Hector. It's just a little odd that he was named to if he's named to the preliminary squad, one would expect him to be named to the final squad too, veteran that he is, but just named to the preliminary squad for whatever reason. There might be reasons why they wanted his name on there. Left back, Ricardo Thomas. We considered him a likely candidate, just like we had the goalkeeper Kemar Foster, but he was not selected, just selected for the preliminary squad. And Alvis Powell is kind of similar to Michael Hector in that if he's named to the preliminary squad, we would expect him to be named to the final squad, especially given the lack of right backs there. But anyway, not selected for the final squad. A couple of those versatile midfielders was a little bit of a surprise, Junior Flemings and Devon Williams, but it's only a surprise because we had them as being off the squad, kind of like Powell and Hector, but they showed up on the preliminary squad. So it's just odd that they kind of seem to be mostly off the squad rather than off the squad. Demario Phillips we had as a likely candidate, but he was only selected to the preliminary squad. And attacking midfielder Lamar Walker we had as a likely candidate, but he didn't make the final squad, just the preliminary squad. And Andre Gray, who we had as a likely candidate, but who was not even on the preliminary squad, perhaps due to his wedding. Okay, and then some surprise inclusions. This doesn't include new players, which we'll cover in the section after this. So just two surprise inclusions here. That is goalkeeper Konaya Boyce-Clark, who we had as possible but unlikely. And Joel, this is central defender, Joel Latibaudiere, who we also had as possible but unlikely. So a couple of surprises. And now we move on to new candidates or new players. So we introduced the new ones who were actually selected for the squad. That was Deshaun Bernard as a centre back and Damari Gray as a left winger. But we also had a few names that were named to the preliminary squad, and so we'll just cover them just by name, really. Three of them were on our soccer files list. In other words, they'd been around a little bit, so we kind of knew they existed. And then four of them are brand new. So the first one is Daniel Green, named to the preliminary squad. He's a forward. And Wes Harding, he's kind of an English recruit, and he is a right back. And Greg Lee, another English recruit who is a left back. All kind of new names or names that had been around and unexpectedly called up to the squad. Actually, two of these players, Harding and Lee, were called up to the preliminary squad for the 2021 World Cup, but didn't make the final cut. Okay, and then four new names just out of the blue for us. So Corey Adai and Luke Badley Morgan and Ronaldo Cephas and Ian Frey. So perhaps these players will come into the picture in the future, but making their first appearance here by being named to the preliminary roster. Okay, and then we finish with an update on injuries. So not much to talk about here. Kamal Lawrence was listed as injured, but I explained that he was named to the squad. So we'd have to say he's an injury doubt. Sorry, that's Kemar Lawrence, an injury doubt. And then we have Ravel Morrison, not an injury, but that strange coding of being ineligible due to cross competition. So we'll just make up a new category here, I guess. Ineligible is Ravel Morrison, and that's all for Jamaica. So blessedly injury-free is Jamaica, and that brings us to the end of the second part and the end of the player podcast for Jamaica. So thanks very much for listening, and we will see you for our next team. Bye-bye.